I remember when I was a kid, and I must have been exceptionally negative to the point where my grandma actually gave me something. She gave me this book where, or yeah, it was a book where it entailed like different ways to have like a positive mind, essentially, right? And I remember one of the things that I read was like actually like talking to yourself in the mirror and saying a bunch of positive things to yourself, like saying positive things slash positive reinforcements to yourself consistently, right? And as a kid, I didn't understand it, right? I thought it was kind of silly. I was like, why are you talking to yourself in the mirror? That is not going to make you more positive, right? I was like, it didn't make sense to me as a kid. However, looking back on it now, thinking about it now, randomly, just the fact that, like, I thought that way, I understand why that habit, that behavior actually does work. It's because you are putting intentions with the words that you say to yourself, right? Words are powerful, right? They've always been like one of our most powerful ways of communicating with each other, right? And just the idea slash knowledge of knowing what words means gives you so much more power than people who don't know what words mean, or people who can't read, unfortunately, right? With that being said, it's almost like a double-edged sword, because you can use that power to either help you or significantly hinder yourself. If you are constantly telling yourself bad things, or telling yourself negative outcomes, right? Things that you don't want to happen, but you're constantly telling yourself these things, right? That is what you are going to see. You're going to find yourself seeing the negative, right? That's how I can say this from my own experiences, just being such a negative little kid, right? That's all I would see. I would only see the negative, and that's all I would focus on. That's all my mind could perceive, because that's all I told myself. However, when I started being more optimistic, part of that was partaking in that habit, which is talking to myself in the mirror and saying good things about myself. As a direct result, I started seeing the world in a much better, brighter, much more beautiful, radiant light, because I trained myself to see the world around me in that way. I told myself that everything's going to be all right, and that is the mentality that I go about everything now, knowing that things are going to be all right, because I put the intention behind those words. I told myself everything's going to be okay, so everything's going to be okay. Doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter what I end up facing. Doesn't matter what obstacles, what challenges that I face. I know that everything's going to be all right, because I tell myself that. And I believe that. I ingrain that belief, right? What I was saying earlier, words can be a double-edged sword. It's very easy for you to get caught up in a maelstrom of negative feelings, of these negative entities that take place in your mind, right? What you tell yourself, right, is what you see, is what your reality will reflect, right? If you are constantly in the dumps, constantly in your mind telling yourself just a bunch of not so nice things, that's all you're gonna see. And the opposite is true as well. If you tell yourself to see the beauty in life, tell yourself everything's going to be okay. If you tell yourself that you are going to succeed, success comes inevitably for me. That's another thing I used to tell myself. If you tell yourself good things will happen, right? Or you will notice good things happening more, right? Because here's the thing, right? it's not so easy. It's not so easy as I'm making it, right? It's taken me a while to even ingrain that idea that everything's gonna be all right, because I still have doubts. I still would have doubts. It'd be like I could tell myself these things, but then my mind would still go back to the way it was, where it's like, okay, but you don't know this, or how can you say for certain, or I don't know. It doesn't sound real, and part of that is still true, right? It takes a while for your mind to change drastically. At least for a lot of people, I would imagine, because you you the way that you've been thinking your entire life, that's a habit that you built. And so if you have been constantly thinking negatively, whether as a result of your environment, of stimuli around you, of what you consume, right? If you're constantly thinking negatively about yourself or about others or about whatever, right? That's a habit that you constantly reinforce, and it takes a while to break/destroy that habit, right? But that's all it can be. That's all. Like, negative thinking is just a habit, and you can break habits. It takes work, but you can break them. And so going back to what I was saying, yes, it's taken me a while to even get to this point where it's like, I do believe in myself, and I do believe that things are going to be all right. But it's because I kept constantly telling myself these things, constantly reinforcing these ideas that I wanted to ingrain within me, right? Because I was tired of thinking negatively. I was tired of being perceived as a negative person. And while I know that it is partially true, right? The only way to change that is from within. And so I wanted to change how I was internally behaving. I started being nicer to myself. Started believing that things were going to be all right. And eventually I got to a point where it's like, yeah, you know what? Everything's going to be okay. It became the default because I kept reinforcing the same positive ideas. What's my point in saying all this, right? What's this guy yapping about? Words are very, very powerful. They've always been powerful. Literature, spoken word, written word, doesn't matter what form. They've always been a means of communicating, of expression. Feelings, right? Feelings put behind these words. And so if you find yourself thinking negatively, or you find yourself feeling bad, try talking to yourself in a nicer way. Tell yourself everything's going to be all right, because your words are powerful. What is power that you can control? Don't let them control you. That's what I got for today. I hope that something that I said resonated with someone out there, man. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling good. Despite some recent setbacks, everything's going to be okay. Because I said so. I believe that. And I want everyone who's watching this to know, no matter what you are going through, no matter what part or phase, situation you are in your life, just know that in the future it'll just be a blip. It'll just be a blip in time. Everything works out in the end. You have to believe that, though. Your words are a lot more powerful than you give yourself credit for. Start using them to change the reality into what you want. If you're seeing this, I love you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Make sure to take care of yourself. But the only person who can take care of you is you. And always remember, your words have the ability to change the reality into whatever you want. Have a good one.